This is the plaintiff, Arlene Williams. She says she gave her landlord the proper notice when she moved out, left the apartment in perfect condition, and the guy's turned out to be a real louse because he won't return her security deposit. She is exercising her rights as a tenant and is suing him here and now for double her security for $3,000 and can't wait to see his face when he loses this lawsuit. This is the defendant, Kevin. He says he helped the plaintiff out when she lost her job, and to assist her, he lowered the rent until she got back on her feet. Unfortunately, she never gave him the full rent when she did get back on her feet, even though he told her numerous times she was underpaying him. So he deducted it out of her security, has every right to be made whole, and isn't going to be the one losing in court today. He's accused of holding on tight to money. The defendant has filed a countersuit for $3,000 for back rent.
All parties, please raise your right hand.
Welcome back to the People's Court. Next case in the docket. The plaintiff wants double her security because she says the defendant stole her money. But the defendant says he's helped her when she got fired, but she never made good. It's the case of double your displeasure.
Thank you, Douglas. Arlene Williams, you are suing your former landlord, Kevin. You've asked us not to mention your last name for $3,000, double your security deposit that, according to you, he wrongfully withheld. You have a counterclaim against her for $3,000, your statutory maximum. According to you, you're out $12,000 in decreased rent and late fees. Tell me what's going on.
I moved in the defendant's unit in 2004. Up until 2015, I was there for 11 years.
Wow. Okay.
So
did you two get along during that time?
Yes, we did. No problem.
Okay.
2008, I had to resign my job, so I let defendant know that I wasn't working any longer. I couldn't afford the rent, so I sent him a 30-day notice. So he came over and he says, well, you've been a good tenant for the past 4 years. I haven't had any problems with you. I help you out and lower the rent for $850.
What did it used to be?
It was $1,000.
And then he lowered it to
$850. And
after you'd lived there how many years?
4 years.
Okay. And then you ended up living there 11 years?
Yes.
Okay. So your rent was $850 and did you ask him to lower your rent, or you were leaving? You gave him the 30-day notice. So you were going to leave back then. And then he said, all right, you know what? Stay here. You're a good tenant. I want to keep you. And he kept you another 7 years.
Exactly.
Okay. And so you decided you were going to leave.
2015.
Okay. And then you give him notice.
Sent him a notice.
Okay. And then that you were going to leave when?
November
Okay, so plenty of notice. And then what happens? You're expecting to get your security deposit
Exactly.
back. All right, so you leave, and do you ever talk to him about, hey, where's my security deposit?
I talked to his wife. She said that she was going to talk to Kevin, didn't hear from them. So in January the 15th, I talked to an attorney, and I asked him to send them a letter, which he did, to, what's going on with the security deposit.
Well, how come you called an attorney and didn't call them?
I talked to them. Not to talk to him because you can text him and he doesn't get back to you right away.
Okay.
So like I said, I talked to the wife. She's supposed to get back to me.
No, it's not like you didn't reach out to them. I'm just saying, like, it's kind of quick to go to an attorney. But so you went to an attorney, and what did the attorney tell you?
So he said, well, I'm going to send a letter to ask them what's going on with the security deposit, the $1,500, and they can get in contact with you. I didn't hear from them.
Really?
2 weeks went by. So when I went to small claims, that's when all the phone calls came in.
After you filed?
As soon as he got
After they got served with a lawsuit?
Exactly.
What happened? You had a nice relationship here for all this time. She's an 11-year tenant. What happened? You were nice. You lowered the rent. Of course, you wouldn't do that if you thought you could get the $1,100 from another client. But you also, sometimes you want to take less rent for a good tenant, and it worked out for everybody. 11 years. What went wrong with the security deposit?
Almost everything that Arlene just said is the way I remember it. But there are a couple of key differences in what happened. When Arlene let me know that she'd lost her job and had to leave, okay? So that's all true. And I did offer to take less rent. But the understanding was that the security deposit would go towards the incremental difference.
Whose understanding was that?
So we had a conversation about it.
Okay.
But to be honest with you, when one thing led to another, and she didn't get back on her feet, I did not want to raise her rent. She was a single mom, and I believe that her daughter was in school at that time. And as you said, sometimes it's better to have a tenant that you can rely on than take a chance with vacancy and everything else. So the rent never came back to where it was.
No, that's fine. I hear what you're saying, and then we all make, we're free to make whatever contracts we want. The contract you made was for $850. What I'm more interested in is you say that there was a conversation with her where the two of you had the understanding that this would eat up the security deposit. Watch this. Did you have that understanding?
Never.
Okay. Did he ever have that conversation with you? Why wouldn't you put that in writing? Because I think you're a nice landlord, but you also have to be, a meticulous landlord. Why wouldn't, if someone's giving up $1,500, don't you want to have that in writing so they don't claim the $1,500 all those years later?
Yes.
Right.
So can I?
And incidentally, when a guy lowers your rent from $1,000 to $850, and you pay substantially less than what the market value is, how do you live with yourself that you then come to court and sue him over it when, according to him, the guy basically put in your pocket $12,000?
Easy.
Just think about it. All right. Go ahead.
Can I expand on that a little bit?
Yeah.
Because it's a fair question, and I should have documented all this. I've been a property owner, not just in Atlantic City, but of other properties for about 15 years. This is one of the first properties I bought. I err on the side of being this way, and it is a mistake, and I guess I'm learning a lesson right now, but I'm a really chill landlord.
Very chill.
I don't build cases against my tenants. I've never been taken to court. I've never had a dispute with a tenant.
See, that's the thing that people have to understand. They say, well, I loaned my brother $1,000. I didn't put it in writing, it's my brother. No, the last guy you want to have a problem with is your brother. So if you should ever put it in writing, it's when you loan your brother $1,000. So putting it in writing is not confrontational. It's the absence. It's wanting to not have confrontation. That's why you put things in writing, so you don't have to end up here. But I believe every word you're saying when you say that you just. But okay, so you wanted me to hear from.
Could I clarify a couple more points? So the chain of events that Erlene described is correct, but there are a couple of things that happened after the attorney letter came. We missed each other. We played a little bit of phone tag. We did finally connect, and here's what happened. So I said, I was a little bit, hurt, to be honest, that she was suing me. And I said, really, Erlene, after everything? I mean, So I made an offer for part of her security deposit, even though she'd racked up, and this is a technical violation. I didn't attempt to collect any of this, but she'd racked up thousands of dollars in late payments. On the call, I said, okay, how about a third of it? She said, no, that's not going to make me happy. I said, well, Erlene, Atlantic City is really far from me if this ends up in court. And I don't want to be in a he said, she said with you. So what would make you happy? And she said, the whole security deposit. So I did offer, a partial return of her security deposit, even though I dispute that she was owed that. I had no intention of ever pursuing her for late fees or back rent, by the way. But until all this happened, I was very surprised that it played out like this. I attempted to contact her lawyer, at least a dozen times. I wrote him emails. I called him. I even called from different numbers because I was afraid he would recognize the number and not pick up. I think the reality is she probably paid for a consult, and because there's not that much money at stake, and he wouldn't take my calls.
Did you actually pay for a consult?
No.
How did you get this lawyer? That's free.
This is a prepaid legal. You pay
prepaid legal.
$10.
Yeah, he should be answering calls though. It's prepaid. You prepaid for him to answer a call.
I even had an attorney who was a friend try to contact him, and he didn't respond to him.
Okay.
So then it ends up.
So here's where we are now.
Then the court case gets filed.
Okay.
Then I called her and offered her entire security deposit back.
The $1,500.
100% of it. She said, no, I want $3,000. And then she offered $2,500. And at that point I said, well, this doesn't actually feel fair.
I understand. Doesn't feel fair. I deal in whether it's legal or not legal. I often am in a position where I can bend and I can look at something and say whether or not something is outside the scope of the industry standards or outside, and then sometimes not. Let's talk about this one. But before I do, I want to talk to the two people here if they're witnesses. So call your first witness would be, did he call you for advice on how to handle the lowering of the rent?
Yes, he did. I'm actually chill number 2.
Oh, Lord. Thing 1 and thing 2. Okay, thing 2, tell me about
I
it.
probably started this down the path it went down. So I remember getting the call, Judge, because at the time my son just had a great breakout game. He was a college lacrosse player. And he called me, and I was more interested in telling him about the game than I was wanting to listen to his problem. So anyway, as we got into it and he started, letting me know what was going on, I basically said, well, Kevin, because I had property then, and I did some of the same types of stuff.
So what did you tell him?
I said, it's what I would do. I think the best thing to do is, lower the rent if it makes sense to you, and then work the difference off through the deposit.
Okay, so you told him that he should work out, explain to her that she'd be eating up the deposit little by little.
Correct.
And then he could decide whether to keep the rent down or not keep the rent down. Did you ever suggest to him that it might be good to get that in writing?
No, I probably.
Okay,
his
don't
wife
call
is
him next time,
definitely
okay? Because he is chill
the
number
one
2.
that's more
All
detail
right,
on it.
who's that young man over there?
This is Brent. One thing to interject. So
Go
this
ahead.
is Brent Butler. One thing to interject is it's absolutely true that I don't like to have vacancy, and I work in Manhattan, which is 2.5, 3 hours away. But what's also true is that the market rent is significantly higher.
I don't care.
Okay.
See, here's the thing.
Okay.
You can make a decision, and it's a good decision for you financially. You're far. She's a good tenant. It worked out. You had a tenant for 11 years without having to re-rent it. Oh, that's fine. I don't care to look back in history and insist there be a contract that there wasn't. I'm not going to do that. So I can tell you right now, you're $10,050 over the decreased rent, unless the agreement was you're going to owe me the rest of that rent later, which of course we all know it wasn't because you admit that wasn't it. Why would you ever be entitled for me to impose a contract that never existed because it should have? No, the contract that exists is the one that you negotiate for, and there is no other contract. What is the young man?
I didn't even
witness?
give the background a thought.
I
until
don't
ended
want
up
to.
in-
Okay, I understand.
Until I ended up in court.
Okay,
So
yes, that's how usually we have a name for people
Right.
like you. We call them litigants. What is that gentleman here
This
to
is
talk
Brent
about?
Butler. So
And
he's
what's-
going to talk about he witnessed interactions between me and Erlene. And at one point, I gave her a 3 months rent, which is, again, a verbal handshake.
Really?
Yes.
Did he give you 3 months rent?
I put her up in a
He
hotel.
wanted to use my apartment for a movie.
Oh.
Thank you. It
Okay.
was something
Well, did he
No, no,
also
no.
wait? Did he also pay for the hotel?
He paid for the hotel, which I get bit by bed bugs. So they had to upgrade me to another room.
Okay.
So it was
and
more of a pain.
Bed
in the
bugs can
behind.
happen in any hotel. Don't make that face. All right. And so they used your apartment for how long?
A week.
A week, and you got a month free rent and bed bugs?
A month free. Well, the $495 that I was paying, that's what I didn't have to pay him for that. And then I had to pay for my own food. So, yeah, he gave me the hotel.
Where was the hotel?
The hotel was at the Sheraton.
Was it
right
on the
down the
beach?
street.
No, it was on
No,
the
it's a
expressway.
convention
Okay.
center.
All right.
And by the
no,
way,
we're
she's,
done. No. These are all things that don't matter. What
Okay.
matters here, I have to figure out 2 things. The last thing I do want to talk. What is he a witness to? That whole movie thing? Pull up a chair. All right. So let's talk about the late fees. All right.
Right.
Is there an original lease
Yes.
that talked about late fees?
yes,
Okay,
and
let
the
me-
original lease was never changed from $1,000, if that matters at all.
I got it. But
It was amended.
the original lease was? Man, you didn't even pay $1,000 for a year?
It was amended to $850.
When she
I
lost
only
her
for
job,
amendment.
the verbal understanding.
Listen. He's like the nicest landlord ever.
But I paid my rent.
I understand you paid your rent. and
I
I'm going to rule based on the law, not on whether he's a nice landlord. But I cannot believe what a nice landlord he is.
He is.
11 years of under
under
market rent.
But he had an option. I could have left.
Yeah.
When I gave him that 30-day
Well,
notice.
if you had left, would that have been better for you?
It probably would have, because I wouldn't have been here.
So do you think that tenants get cut breaks by landlords when they fall behind in rent?
I think so. I think it's in the landlord's interest. They've already got them living there, and they can try and, if they lose a little money now, at least if they're not filing a lawsuit, it'll be even more expensive.
Fair point. That's pretty compelling. What do you say to that?
I don't think so. I think some people, it's kind of like this is your contract. You can't pay. You need to get out, and you're going to pay whatever.
Okay, heartless, not heartless. Who's the tiebreaker?
I've never met my landlord.
Interesting. Okay, I kind of get the subtext there, going inside the courtroom.
Let me just ask you, is there a late fee in the
Yes.
in the lease.
I highlighted it for you, Judge.
You highlighted a lot of stuff. Late fee of $50.
And then it goes to 100 if it's more than
All right,
10
and so
days
were there
late.
times when either, I guess you said no for you, but yes for the agency?
Because Ocean, because they asked them for documents, like they needed the addendum to the lease. They sent it and it didn't sign. So then we had to get them to send it back, send them to sign it. They never signed it. Then it was like, we need you to sign this. I have all the emails that
They did drive
Ocean Inc.
both of us nuts with
Yeah,
administrative
and
stuff.
this wasn't because of his fault. I mean, because he didn't sign. Then they sent the check. They didn't get the check.
How often did they did it arrive late?
There's no reason for this last payment to have been late. You can see the date on it.
Let me
It
see
was
the last
way
payment.
after she
Do you have
moved
any
out.
other records, or you're too chill to bring me any other records?
I do.
I have
Of their
I have
the tardiness.
I have the.
Let me see
yeah,
that.
if you
I
want
have
the
a
original.
Yeah, let me see
Why?
that.
Okay.
Yeah.
So if you look at some of the timestamps on those payments, you'll see that some of them are mid-month, end of month. So
Okay.
sometimes it was the fault of the social services agency, and sometimes there was other stuff going on. But I estimate that about a third of the rent payments over the 11-year tenancy were late.
All right, we're done. Everybody stop talking. Here's what's going on, okay? First of all, you have certain requirements as a landlord, and the fact that you don't know them or the fact that you're very relaxed will mean that you're going to live a longer life, but it won't mean that you're legally correct. One of the things that you have a responsibility to do is return the security deposit or state why you aren't doing in writing within a certain amount of time, none of which you did. And you have to do that. It has to
Because
be
we
in
were
writing.
still talking about that check
No.
within the 30 days.
I'm talking to you. Let me do my thing.
Sorry.
All right, so when she leaves, within 30 days of the time she leaves, you go, regardless of whether the rent is paid up, not paid up, you got to take care of business. So you send, whether it's send her a letter and say, I don't have rent, or send her a letter and say, I'm keeping it for X, keeping it for Y, keeping it for Z. So next time, don't be so chill and be more responsible and do what you're supposed to do. It's easy. All you got to do is look up this limited statute that's only a few pages long that tells you what your responsibilities are and memorize it, okay? You don't really have to memorize it. You just have to highlight the parts that are important, okay? One of the important parts in your state is you live in a state with penalties. Your state decides that if you do not do what you're supposed to do, if you wrongfully withhold, that it's going to be double. Because at some point you say, look, I'll just offer you the $1,500. Here's the part that I hate. I hate that when you have a chance to profit on him, you do. Where when he had a chance to profit on you, he didn't. That has nothing to do with my ruling, but it still bothers me. It just kind of bothers me. So I understand why he was kind of hurt. Yes, it was in his best interest to have a good tenant, but he's the kind of guy who knew that and gave you that break for 11 years. So when the day comes finally, when the guy says, look, I'll give you the $1,500. I just can't believe that you don't say, okay, let's just wrap this up. It's not like you were chasing him for a year. And about a guy who accepted late rent, because when your agency doesn't come up with rent, you're late rent, okay? And he could be saying, here's the late fee, 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 and he never did it. And yeah, there's like karma, a little karma going on here. So what am I gonna do? I find first that, yeah, you're right, within the statute, that he wrongfully withheld it, because all wrongfully means, it doesn't mean like, wrongfully. It means, do you lay claim to something you don't have a right to lay claim to, and it's true. But I see that the late payments, the accumulation of late fees, eats up that other bonus $1,500. And I'm gonna order you to return the $1,500 to her. That's my verdict. Good luck, folks.
Thank you.
And that takes care of your counterclaim, right? Right, okay.
All right, let's see what chill is like up close and personal here. Step on in, and you heard the judge's ruling. What's your reaction?
It's a great ruling. I think it's very fair.
Okay, do you feel taken advantage of by her? Are you still hurt by her?
She had to come all the way down here for Atlantic City, and I'm glad she's not leaving empty-handed.
You're a little too nice for a landlord. What are you doing in that business?
I've been lucky with good tenants, and I believe it makes sense to pay it forward. So,
All right, good for you. Head around the corner this way. What can you say? There he goes. Could you ask for a nicer landlord?
He was a great landlord. I mean, but it was time for me to get my security, and I didn't get my security.
You got it, and then you tried to hit him up for the double. Judge didn't
Yes,
really think
because
that
he
was
made-
good karma.
Yeah, but he should have been on his business and gave me the notice and let me know why he was holding it. That's all I asked for him to do.
Yeah, but all those late fees he let you slide on.
That wasn't because I sent my money in on time. Other agency, they might not have did that.
All right,
Thank you.
Harvey.
Okay, this is an area of the law, Kurt, where the law really favors the tenant. That in every state, there are a bunch of things landlords have to do when it comes to returning security deposits. And if they're withholding any money, even a dime, they have to itemize exactly what it is that they're withholding and why, justify the price, and you have to get it to the tenant by letter within a certain number of days. And if you don't, then some states say you get double the security back, and some states even make it 3 times.